CNBC TV 18 Weekender.
Welcome back. We're in conversation with Sanjay Rishi. So Sanjay, I mean, does golf help you cool your nerves before, let's say, a tense day at work?
Well, it helps me relax per se. I'm not sure there's a correlation. I have great days of work, I have tense days at work, but I don't think golf has much to do with it. I play golf for just the sheer pleasure of playing golf. It does teach me a few things on how to negotiate work. For me, I'm a recreational golfer, an improving golfer.
Tell me, honestly, how good are you?
Well, on a good day, I would break 100, so that's not very good. It's just about right if you have a full-time job. If you are a scratch player, then holding on to a full-time job and being at the course for 4 hours just practicing to be a scratch player is not sustainable. So I enjoy my golf and I have a full-time job. This, by the way, is one of my favorite clubs. It's a 4-iron, and it's my favorite because it's one of the few clubs with which I hit straight. With most of the others, I tend to spray the ball all over the course. So I thought I'd bring it along to show you.
Fair enough. So, let's just continue the conversation we were having inside, Sanjay, because, payments, bank and payments industry is, of course, now in news.
Yeah.
And you've been very buoyant and optimistic about the future potential of this. But considering that since, the RBI had given licenses to 11 players, 3 have pulled out of the race. And since then, many fear that, payments bank as a viable business venture is losing its sheen. So I'm curious, are you still optimistic considering some of the statements that, the companies have been making who pulled out of the racing? It's just not financially viable.
Look, I think fundamentally the idea of payments banks as an injection into the system to introduce more competition that will help hopefully promote financial inclusion, get more unbanked into the bank system and get more modern payments out there. That idea is fundamentally a very sound idea. And the Reserve Bank of India, full credit to them, coupled with some of the other initiatives that they've introduced about introducing second factor authentication like chip and pin at point of sale or a one-time password for online commerce has helped to drive a lot of confidence amongst both users as well as merchants to accept electronic payments, which is required for an emerging market like ours. So the idea behind payment banks is very sound. I think what people have to appreciate is, before they leap into the space, is that payments is a specialized business. It requires a lot of long-term investment in building the infrastructure, in creating the distribution capability, in achieving scale, because the margins, at least the way the payments banks are configured, the margins are not going to be great.
Right.
But over time, you could build a massive customer franchise that is using your payments bank for transacting. That could be very attractive if you have a core business that you can then engage that customer franchise that you built the payments bank through.
In fact, we'll just come to that. But then do you feel that the RBI guidelines currently in its in its current avatar are far too narrow, and that actually, considering that they have restrictions on so many things, you think that is also one of the big reasons why why players are now, in retrospect, are now getting to realize that perhaps, hey, it's not as great a business as we were initially led to believe?
Well, it's one of those classic things that first nothing was happening, now something is happening, it's not enough. So there'll always be a segment or two that will be unhappy with the full extent to which payment banks have been given operating freedom. But you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to make the basic concept work. And payments banks can open bank accounts, they can issue debit cards, they can issue prepaid cards. So that's a fairly wide remit. I think in the payment space, the one thing that they cannot do yet is issue credit cards. It's going to take a while for that to happen because managing credit, issuing credit is a specialized business. And I think the RBI is saying right now is that, look, we don't trust players outside the non-banking system to do that just yet. And they're probably right in that point of view. But I think if payments banks can show that their business model is working and it's created millions of new consumers for the banking system and millions of new users for electronic payments, then that could be used as a very strong foundation for expansion.
You were making a point that payment bank cannot be an end in itself. It has to be sort of, there has to be something else associated with it. So I mean, can you give us examples where companies are doing it now?
No, I said that a payment bank can operate standalone, provided they recognize that it requires a fairly long period of investment to achieve a level of scale that would make the operating margins worthwhile. Because the operating margins for payment banks are going to be pretty narrow, and so you can make that work if you hit scale, which may or may not be on the investment horizon of some players. If they want to operate on a standalone basis, I believe that there are some players who could operate on a standalone basis. But if you want to get quicker returns from payment banks, then you probably want to use the customer franchise that you built through a payment bank and engage that with a core product service or a core product or service that you're offering, so that the payment bank becomes a nice bolt-on to that core service and creates an end-to-end experience for the customer.
So in that sense, you're still sanguine about the prospects for payment bank, despite
I think so. I think
this recent criticism in terms of the RBI guidelines are far too restrictive, and the fact that 3 players have also pulled out. You still remain optimistic about its future potential?
Yeah, I think that introducing initiatives into the system that will help promote payment modernization is a good thing. And going back to our discussions on the cash intensity in this market at 5 to 6% of the total private consumption expenditure, going to rain? Probably
it's
not.
good if it does.
I know. I think requires interventions. It requires disruption, and payment banks could be that disruption.
So what is American Express strategy then? I mean, will you consider actually throwing your hat into the ring?
Well, we can't be a payments bank because our business is credit and charge cards, and payment banks don't issue credit and charge cards.
Through maybe an investee companies.
Yeah, we could be always open to partnerships if there's a win-win model. So the first stage of that has been to work with the payment banks and ensure that American Express cards are accepted as funds in currency for the payment banks who offer these digital wallets. So we make sure that if our customers want to use the wallet of one of the new providers, service providers, whether it's a Mobikwik or a Paytm, then they can use their American Express card. The second step, actually part B of this first step, has been to place 1 or 2 bets, and one of the bets that we placed is with a company called Mobikwik. It's a small investment to see if there is synergy that we can create in terms of both our payments business as well as our loyalty business that can help those businesses as well as Mobikwik. Very early in the day, it's a bet, and we'll see how that goes.
They didn't get the license in the first round.
Not as a payment bank, but they are a digital wallet, and so they do operate as a payment provider. You can take a credit or debit card and you can load the digital wallet, and then you can use that digital wallet to pay for mobile phone top-ups or utility payments or direct to home.
So is there a possibility then for you to actually go in for a formal tie-up with the 8 existing players who've got the licenses for payment banks?
We'll see how the business model evolves. We'll see how the operations evolve. We'll look for synergy between our business and their business, and we've got 2 components where we're looking at that synergy. One is payments, obviously, but we also have an interest in India's largest coalition loyalty program called Payback, and I think there could be some very exciting possibilities out there. I think
you're being far too cryptic, Sanjay. I mean, have you open discussions with any of the 8 players so far? Are you?
No, it's way too early. But I think we theoretically, not hypothetically, but theoretically, we could actually offer a very compelling loyalty proposition to many of the payment banks out there who are going to have to move past the era of price discounts and other kinds of gimmicks into creating real value for customers. And to my mind, that's predicated on 2 things. One is you've got to offer an outstanding customer experience, and second is you've got to build some kind of ongoing loyalty with the customers. The experience does some of that, but the forward-thinking companies in this space are investing in very strong loyalty programs, and we can actually bring that loyalty into play. And it's particularly important for a payment bank because the margins are thin, like I mentioned. So for them to invest in a loyalty program on their own is probably going to be unviable, but when they engage with a coalition program like Payback, then you get a little bit of loyalty points or payback points when you transact at the payment bank. You get a little more when you go to a fuel, when you fuel up at HPCL. You get even more when you go and buy stuff at Future Group.
Right.
Or when you book a ticket at Make My Trip, and then those points start to build up. And then you can use those points to get access to lots of services and gifts that could actually be provided by members of the
So
coalition.
therefore, when you do throw in your hat into the ring,
we're not going to throw in a hat into the ring, but what I'm saying
but
is that
no, in the sense that by actually going in for a formal tie-up with any of the players, hypothetically speaking or theoretically speaking, as you said, then you may make an offer that that will be very, very compelling.
it's going to be an underlying condition for both us as well as the payment bank that there has to be the construct of a win-win. And I think that in theory, our payment products and our loyalty products can offer very compelling propositions to payment banks, and if they're open to the idea, we're open to the idea as well. And I think some win-win constructs might emerge, but are we talking to a payment bank today? No. Would we like to? Definitely. So why aren't we talking already? It's too early in the process, right? It's a 1,000-page book. I've just about started. I'm told it's steamy in parts by my uncle. He also told me that steamy part is fictitious. We'll find out.
CNBC TV 18 Weekender.